Hello students, welcome to a session of exception handling. So first, what is an exception? It is an unexpected situation which occurs during runtime. That is, while executing your program stops because of some unexpected input or output, some problem in the code. So to avoid that, if you don't want your program to be stopped because of a particular exception, it can be handled and the program execution can be continued. So before going into exception handling, you have to know the classification of errors. There are syntax errors and logical errors. They can also be called as compile time errors and runtime errors. The compile time errors are mostly caused because of wrong syntax, and they occur during the time of compilation. When you save your program, when you save the code, it shows this error. Now the problem is they cannot be handled. That is, you cannot run your program unless you correct these errors. So the Python will not allow you to execute the program without correcting these syntax errors. When it comes to runtime errors, they are the logical errors, which means your syntax will be perfect, but when you run the program it will cause some error, and these errors can be handled so that the program continues without stopping. Now these are some exceptions. If you notice, the case should be noticed. Type error, this T and E in capitals. So the names you should be familiar of so that they can be handled. Data type error, name error, when you give an incorrect name for a variable or a function. Then index error, some index number of a list or a tuple which doesn't exist. Key error relates to a dictionary. Value error, when you give an incorrect value for conversion or any other function. Then input output error, when you read a file or anything. Then read zero division error, import error, when you try to import a module. End of file error, while you read a file, when the end of file condition occurs, it is raised. So these are the different exceptions that can be handled in Python. Now this is the syntax to write a try except block. So the first block in your code should be the try block, and the coding to handle the exception should be given inside try block. And when the error occurs, how are you going to handle? To do that, you should give an except block and give the statements for handling that error. These two are compulsory. When you give a try statement, you have to give an except statement. But there is an else, which is an optional block, which is executed when there is no exception. Suppose you give 3 lines in try. If there is an error, it is handled by this block. If there is no error, whatever statement is given inside the else block will get executed. Now, whether there is an exception or not, the code given inside finally block will be executed. It is always executed irrespective of the exception or not. And this is an optional block. Else is also an optional block. So these two are only compulsory. So let me show you some examples to handle this try except code. Now look at this code. I've given an integer and a string, and I'm trying to add these two. Let me run this program and show you what happens. It says type error. That is, you cannot use a plus operator for int and string. This is a type error. So let us see how to handle this. So where do you expect the error? There may be an error in any of these 3 lines. So give a try statement and include all these 3 lines inside the try block. So actually you need not expect an error here because it's just an assignment statement. So you can even put them outside the try block. Only the place where you expect an error can be included inside try block. So I expect an error only in this statement, so I'm giving it here. And what should you do when you expect an error? So just give print sorry, an error occurred. right? And I'll just make it this way. So now we'll run the program and see. So previously the program stopped because of the error, but now the program is successfully executed, and whatever error occurred was handled by Python. It has given a message. Now, what if there is no error? That can be done using the else block. Let me remove this so that there is no error in my statement. Print success. Now, just it says success. And when does this happen? When you try to catch an exception, but there is no exception, so the else part will get executed. Now, I need another message which will happen whether there is an exception or not. That is called finally block. See, now there is no error, so it says success and finally thank you. Now I'm going to create an error. Now let us see what happens. So what do you expect? It will say sorry, an error occurred, and thank you also. See, this is the use of try, except, else, finally block. Now, this will happen, this except is executed for any kind of error, whatever error is caused. Now, if you are very specific that you are going to handle only one particular error, then you have to give the name of the error. Type error, say for example, type error. I am going to handle only the type error. For other kinds of errors, this will not work out. This coding will not work out. Right? See, let me give some other error. End of file error. Which means, see, the program did not handle it, simply stops. Because I am trying to handle only the end of file error. But the error that occurs here is some other error, type error or value error. So, if you don't mention the name of the error exception, any exception is handled. If you want to handle only a particular exception, then you have to give the name of the exception. This one, except, and give the exception name, so that only that particular exception is handled. Hope you understood this. Thank you.